get one-on-one time with the one, the only Arun Chaudhary. You know Arun, of course, from the committee program. But of course, he is a reoccurring panelist on our show. He's a political filmmaker. He's the host of the committee and runs the committee and is advising all of the left that are taking on the extreme right across Europe. You're saving us. Hopefully.
Darn trying, because I do think, and we've talked about this before, we'll talk about it again, but it's a situation that what happens here ends up in the U.S. much more than what happens in the U.S. ends up here in terms of politics. And I will say the scariest part about that, I shouldn't hold this random pointy thing while I'm making points. That's a bad communications tactic. Thing I'll say about that's scary is while you see like things like in the wellness community sort of nibbling around the edges of far right extremism here, in Europe that's much farther along, and places like rural Austria, you will see the birthing of youthful eco-fascist movements.
No, it's I'm so glad you're saying this, because I feel like the show, I've already said this at the top of the show, this is like, we're leaning in on this now. I don't think people understand. It's not just that the far right is growing. They may not have won all the seats in the EU. Bannon's project never went away. He planted the seeds. And as I said that, just a few minutes ago, I said, while it takes a woman 3 times to run before they win, these guys, it takes usually 1 time, sometimes twice. They're planting the seeds. They don't give up. They invest in the pipeline. They're educating people in colleges, and they're trying to reach people wherever they are and bring them in. And Steve Bannon said this in The Brink, openly on air, to a reporter from The Guardian saying, you've got 20% of the audience that I want. You've got 20, meaning the left, and he's going to figure out whatever way to get those folks in bed with him. And
even just a couple is good, because you're funneling directly from the opponent into your own pipeline, and it's very rare in politics to be able to do that. And so this kind of Bannon pipeline, I guess we can call it, is one of the more remarkable pieces of politics in the 21st century.
And horrifying. And all he does, I urge people to watch The Brink. I think it's on maybe Hulu or something. It's a documentary came out maybe 3 years ago, and it was or 2 years ago, about the his EU, like the planting the seeds for his right wing training camp, I guess.
And at some point, the master and the teacher is reversed, right? Because Tucker Carlson doesn't go visit Viktor Orban to lend Orban credibility. He's the goddamn head of state of a major EU country. It is quite the opposite.
Yep.
So you see actually where power is flowing from.
And in The Brink with Bannon, he's sitting there at a table with world leaders talking about building coalitions between Orban, building coalitions with Duterte, and obviously people have lost power, but the ideas have not gone away. These are vehicles. No. These candidates are vehicles for movements that spread up and down. They can be official organizations or unofficial. The ideas are there. The actions are there. You were in the White House in the Obama White House, of course. You were the
first term,
videographer. I said this on air last night. I remember when Barack Obama did not take ISIS seriously. And I know the left loves when we bring up ISIS, but hear me out. Every radical organization has always targeted young men, right? But the difference between ISIS back then was it wasn't a centralized organization like some of the other groups that were a little bit more top down, or they were networked in a different type of way. And this is all as the rise of the internet was happening. It didn't matter if they were official, if they had a legal entity, how they were the money was coming from somewhere, but it's so convoluted now. It's so easy to hide money and move money in different places, whether it's moving it through crypto or moving it through 25 different entities or holding it in real estate. We don't know where it's coming from. But what was so interesting about Bannon was he was sitting there saying, I don't care who pops up and where they pop up from. I want to build it. Meanwhile, the former CEO of Goldman Sachs is sitting at that table talking about these ideas in a very legitimate way. And you're like, what? This is out in the open. And we're sitting here in America, oh, well, Bannon's out, so he doesn't matter anymore. And, it's no big deal. This is he lost his experiment. The Proud Boys are literally organizing locally right now to run for election. Whether they're an organization or not, they're people.
This stuff is always going to be attractive to powerful interests. It's always going to have the table tilted. It's always going to have that little extra zing. And so it is just so beholden upon Democrats, other center-left parties globally, not to let the bandits of the world run at them from the left, right? This is one of the reasons, people forget in the Cold War, one of the reasons we ran more of a welfare state in the Cold War was that there was a world power of socialism that folks were, vaguely worried about physically conquering the world. And when that went away, we felt like we didn't have to worry about that kind of thing anymore. But what we see more and more is that letting folks run at the left is what is creating this power, and we openly let that happen with the platforms we choose. And when I say we, I'm being general, but on the center left, these are we're having bad outcomes from choices that are being made.
So, speaking of, bad outcomes from choices we've made, you think that folks storming Congress and trying to kill our politicians would maybe scare the politicians into actually doing something, but of course not. There are much scarier things like losing donors or whatever the hell, keeps them up at night. I want to play this clip of Liz Cheney, who has somehow become our leftist hero of the day. I wish the left had as much courage as Liz Cheney has taking on her own party. It's
just amazing how freeing being kicked out of whatever power structure you're in is. Yes. So we don't agree with Liz Cheney, but we like anyone in that position. Their attitude and the kind of what energy and truth that they bring is always going to be a satisfying meal.
Absolutely. So she, of course, was reading text messages that were uncovered when Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff to Donald Trump, was going to testify, but now he is not. But he at least did provide a lot of information, documentation. Bunch of stuff. And we're just starting. So let's play this clip of Liz Cheney.
Texts, including from Trump administration officials, urged immediate action by the president. Quote, POTUS has to come out firmly and tell the protesters to dissipate. Someone is going to get killed. In another, Mark, he needs to stop this now. A third, in all caps, tell them to go home. A fourth, and I quote, POTUS needs to calm this shit down. Indeed, according to the records, multiple Fox News hosts knew the president needed to act immediately. They texted Mr. Meadows, and he has turned over those texts. Quote, Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. This is hurting all of us. He is destroying his legacy, Laura Ingraham wrote. Please get him on TV. Destroying everything you have accomplished, Brian Kilmeade texted. Quote, can he make a statement? Ask people to leave the Capitol, Sean Hannity urged. As the violence continued, one of the president's sons texted Mr. Meadows, quote, he's got to condemn this shit ASAP. The Capitol Police tweet is not enough, Donald Trump Jr. texted. Meadows responded, quote, I'm pushing it hard, I agree. Still, President Trump did not immediately act. Donald Trump Jr. texted again and again, urging action by the president. Quote, we need an Oval Office address. He has to lead now. It has gone too far and gotten out of hand.
Got a little out of hand.
A little bit out of hand. I think we're going to play another clip from her as well.
Mr. Meadows received numerous text messages that he has produced without any privilege claim urging President Trump to take action. I read a number of those last night to the nation. Here are a few others from Republican members. Quote, it is really bad up here on the Hill. Another one, the president needs to stop this ASAP. Another one, fix this now. And as we saw last night, dozens of texts, including from Trump administration officials, from members of the press, from Donald Trump Jr. urged immediate action by the president. But we know hours passed with no action by the president to defend the Congress of the United States from an assault while we were trying to count electoral votes.
So, Arun, you've worked in the White House before.
Yes.
Let's just imagine the same exact thing. You know, a right-wing plot from the outside were to happen, you know, and folks storm the Capitol. There's like a chain of command. I mean, if say Sasha Obama were to text chief of staff to the White House, Rahm Emanuel or whoever was chief of staff at the time.
Yeah.
How does this work? I mean, can Sasha just not text her father? Like how does this normally work?
Right. So, I mean, look, I cannot tell you how the Trump family works, and maybe it's, you know, worse than I think it is, but I believe that Donald Jr. has access to his father via text message, via all, you know, Twitter DMs, like however it is they talk, they're talking. The fact that he is going to Mark Meadows, and the fact that everyone's using his name Mark so constantly. This is Golda, by the way.
And Golda's Tushy.
Yeah, totally. The fact that everyone's going out of their way, I think, shows you that they've already tried to directly reach out to the president, who's not inaccessible, right? He's not a guy in a golden palace. He's always willing to talk to a reporter, always willing to pick up the phone and call and yell and be crazy with whoever, right? Accessibility is not his thing. So clearly he had made his mind up. And there's nothing a chief of staff can really do. But the chief of staff absolutely has as much access as you could possibly want to the president, especially this president who's a homebody, who's hanging out in his office, you know, or possibly in the residence. Like the chief of staff's physical office is attached, so they don't have to go through any corridors. The chief of staff is supposed to be everywhere at all times. The chief of staff literally has access to things saying like the medical condition of the president at all times. So this is a question of the president made a decision that you see a lot of people making, which is, am I a Republican or am I a Trump person? Who am I dancing with? Who brought me? And I think you see, and I'm having this idea as we're talking, and Golda's helping me with it, but it feels like Mark Meadows is playing this perfectly by releasing text messages, which lets him sort of be part of the process, but then not speaking, which lets him sort of be a tough guy, sort of in the middle. And if you're a Trump person, which a majority of America basically, you know, the bet folks are making is these aren't text messages that you're like, these people are asking for something dumb. It sort of makes establishment Republican media figures and established figures look sort of
right.
And you can see, as you see people making this decision over and over again, like, do I go with Trump or do I go with mainstream Republicans? Mainstream Republicans lose that argument just about every time. And this is just another case of that.
I think what this also reveals is, you know, there's always been this question about whether or not Trump is acting independent because he's made some sort of deal with the devil, or he's just a maniac, or both. But like, you know, when the impeachment was happening, this was a major question. How much was Trump, you know, an independent person who may have made decisions on his own, or how much was his family looped into those decisions? And I think it's really interesting that, you know, even family members are not on the same page with their father, which is, you know, weird. Like, it's gone too far. I mean, that to me seems like they were at least conscious of the fact that they had, I mean, of course they were conscious. There was an organized rally outside, but did they know that they were going to be storming the Capitol?
It's sort of a game of chicken, right? And they all bailed out at a sensible time and pulled off into the shoulder. But that's not how Trump plays the game, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, you know, no, never lost by going full bore ahead. Right. And so, yeah, I think you are separating kind of what makes Donald Trump special is, you know, what Danton would say, daring, right? You know, like just the one who dares wins.
So I want to, our dear friend Ben Dixon from the Benjamin Dixon Show has created this compilation. David, who works with Ben as well. Let's play this clip of the hypocrisy of the Fox News hosts, who of course were like, it's too far, and then like half a beat later, you know, hey, ratings.
Get a text from Brian Kilmeade on Fox and Friends. These are not phonies. We can personally confirm that. Whether you like them or not, they're real.
Please get him on TV. Destroying everything you have accomplished, Brian Kilmeade texted.
I do not know Trump supporters that have ever demonstrated violence that I know of in a big situation.
Quote, Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. This is hurting all of us. He is destroying his legacy. Laura Ingraham.
An overwhelming majority of them, more than 99% had to be, were peaceful.
Quote, can he make a statement? Ask people to leave the Capitol, Sean Hannity urged.
And we had the reports that groups like Antifa, other radical groups, I don't know the names of all of them, that they were there to cause trouble.
In a weak attempt to smear yours truly, and presumably, I guess, President Trump, Congresswoman Cheney presented one of my text messages from January 6th to Mark Meadows. Surprise, surprise, surprise. I said to Mark Meadows the exact same thing I was saying live on the radio at that time and on TV that night on January 6th and well beyond January 6th. And by the way, where is the outrage in the media over my private text messages being released again publicly? Do we believe in privacy in this country? Apparently not. I am an honest, straightforward person. I say the same thing in private that I say to all of you. Liz Cheney
I'm an honest,
knows
straightforward
this.
person.
She doesn't
It's my
seem to
favorite.
care. She's interested in one thing and one thing only, smearing Trump and purging him from the party.
Does that sound like I was downplaying it to you?
Oh my God.
Now, but it was not an insurrection. To say anything different is beyond dishonest, and it ignores the facts of that day.
This is going to work.
I mean, yeah, it'll work for them. This is okay. I think we have a good sense of what's going on here. Arun, I mean, when you say it's going to work, is it going to work on all of the Fox audience? Is it going to work? Because I think people, just pulling back a little bit on the Fox audience, people, I think in centrist world and center to center, left to left, think that the Fox audience is like all of the Trumpsters. But the reality is, you know,
It's just the folks who watch the news also. Yeah,
it's just the folks who watch the news. It's in the airports, it's at the gyms.
Yeah. It's
And
ubiquitous.
many of them don't like Trump, and yet Fox is leaning in so hard on Trump and potentially, you know, losing their center right folks that are, I mean, I think they might be going too far because
I
they're
don't
so
think
worried.
so.
Really?
I don't know. You're not making an incorrect point, right? And maybe if it was more, like, that could be true, but too much time has passed. I feel like the history book with, you know, Viking helmet guy photo, like, has already kind of been written. And this sort of reminds me of impeachment 1 and impeachment 2, of like digging in on hypocrisy and things that, you know, seem clear, and you know, and you're like, why doesn't anyone care about this? And it's because each time the opinion has already been cemented first, right? Like that redacted weird Mueller report that was like, everything's fine, right? And it turned out actually some of it wasn't that great. But like, you know, that was what stuck. You know, next time, not guilty. That's what stuck. I think this time, like, you know, the idea that there's something impolite happened, that something maybe even dangerous happened because of improper security protocols in place, is something that the Fox audience can understand and accept. We can move in on. Be like, Trump acted badly by not intervening also. But I think that what all of this will add up to them ultimately not punishing Republicans, the Republican media, or Donald Trump for January 6th as being any kind of motivating factor in any kind of voting outcome.
I mean, I hear you on that, and of course the most notable way of holding people accountable is holding the people accountable who are just like the individuals who they don't care about. So whether it's the Viking dude or other folks who were in the insurrection, who are now going to be in prison, you know, via the FBI's investigation, sure, they should be held accountable. They were bad actors, like really bad, dangerous actors. Simultaneously, you know, those who were involved, the lawmakers rarely ever are held accountable. In terms of politically, I mean, I could be wrong, but like my perspective on this is, so say, let's just be very generous, say of the Fox audience, 50%, maybe 40%, that's really generous, I think, are loyal Trump people. I don't think that's true. I think maybe 20, and they're very vocal. And then there's,
20.
plenty
That's right.
Yeah, like and that's, by the way, a very scary number. 20% of the Fox audience is loyal Trumpsters. I have family members who are Republican in Arizona who watch Fox News all day long, love Bill O'Reilly, even though he's not on anymore. And I say that because Bill O'Reilly just did an event in Orlando with Trump. They have all of Bill O'Reilly's books. They despise Trump, and they will never vote for Trump, and they haven't voted for Trump. They have guns. They want lower taxes. They're Republicans. I won't even say they're center-right Republicans. They're Republicans. They're conservative Republicans. But Trump is just too much, too over the top. So I do think that is, and they voted for Joe Biden. Like, I don't know how that happened. My brain kind of, exploded.
Yes, but more Republicans voted for Hillary Clinton than voted for Joe Biden.
Correct. 100% correct. And I don't think, well, not more Republicans total percentage-wise, because
percentage-wise. Yeah. But she peeled more layers off the onion,
Exactly. Which, again, people's brains explode when they hear that. But that part of that is because the Trump experiment kept growing and growing. And it might have grown even more so, and we're not really sure yet where
and it's polarization, right? So
Yeah.
when it comes to you hate this guy, but are you on the team?
Right.
The right wing has the team. I mean, I'll just give you the global equivalent that we find so frustrating working in Italy. Bellwether of the world, as we say, right? You have two teams, even though they have lots of parties, they add up to roughly two teams that are very close in strength. But when you add up the two largest right parties, La Lega and Fratelli d'Italia, who are both really solid, conservative, horrible parties. Forget like Forza, like Berlusconi's kind of center-right thing. Like, it adds up to the number. Like, it adds up to every single person knows they're both on the same team, and that's a number. And whenever you put the 5 stars and PD together, there's too much of the I won't vote for the other one. I don't care about the. So their alliance is weaker than the sum of its parts. And we see that all over the place, right? Where the alliance on the right is equal or greater to the sum of its parts, because everybody does bring a friend. They do go to the church group. They do get 3 more people. They do the work, Or, I forgot how I was going to finish that sentence. I think you know what I'm saying, though.
Or, yeah. I mean, we get you. Okay, speaking of, you are in Germany, and I woke up this morning and I saw the news that the far right is organizing in Germany. A great thing to lead your day off with. Now that they haven't been there for a while, it's just a little bit like more open. It used to be like a little, behind the closet, not as aggressively open. Far right's organizing Germany to around the vaccine mandate and going after politicians. Can you just kind of give me a sense of this is scroll up a little bit. German raids on COVID extremists over Saxony leader death plot. So the part that really sticks out to me is COVID extremists. This is now a political, like, they're threatening leaders with death. Like, what level of insanity?
Also just from the from the Department of the Banality of Evil, the reason we get COVID extremists in the headline is because reporters have had to write this headline so many different times and doesn't know how else to describe these people, right? Because you had one of these in Rotterdam where the cops actually had to shoot 7 or 9 people, which in Europe is not something that cops normally do. You had in Rome huge ones in the Czech Republic. So there is increasingly a wave of right-wing extremism mixed with vaccine skepticism just fomenting. And I think folks in America are always surprised to hear how strong conspiracy and QAnon stuff, etc., is in Europe, specifically in Germany. Germans love a good QAnon kind of conspiracy style thing. And when you have the Americans do too. There's something that we're looking for this sort of superstructure. I don't know exactly what it is, but you do that fueled with the fact that things when they are Nazis involved happen big here because they're good at Nazi stuff. There's lots of actual Nazis, especially in portions of the East and stuff. And so these demonstrations that maybe don't get as much play although they're just as far right, just as scary in Rome, are happening here in Germany. And they actually have like real Nazis with real Nazi stuff there. And it's terrifying. I mean, I will tell you just, anecdote that does not need to be an example of anything, but the way it all gets so convoluted. I mean, more than this happens every day. But but my kids, we're all Jewish. We're called Jewish Nazis because they were wearing masks. right? So this is like,
okay, so this is very important. I
they're
have
like,
noticed
you're a
this.
Jewish Nazi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've been tweeting about this, and it's interesting because I'm not backing down on this anymore. I've been a little bit afraid of getting into the whole like fights online with the left because they just come for you and it gets really aggressive, but it's too far. It's like people are dying, you know, because we have a pandemic that will never go away because it's become a political identity. But again, back to Bannon, which you're very familiar with, and I feel like I'm, you know, at least at a 301 level class on Bannon, but you're definitely, you've got like a master's in Bannon mindset and understanding what his strategies are. I say this because they have co-opted so many different terms to do this mental jujitsu on people where, you know, when I would go on Fox News like 8 years ago, they did a little bit of this, but it's really gone above, you know, they would say like, oh, you're a socialist. You know, that's how the Nazis were socialists. But now it's like you have right-wingers saying that, you know, we're the fascists. Rudy Giuliani going out there and saying Joe Biden is a fascist because of the mandates. I mean, he doesn't say that directly, but that's what he's alluding to.
And this is an age thing.
Alluding to.
And this is an age thing, right? I think
Right.
this sounds a bit silly to us, and we're like, oh, that's crazy, and Jewish Nazis, ha. But it's for that audience of angry young men, right? Who like are looking for something, hate things, no authority is bad. It's like, yeah, Joe Biden is a fascist. You know, they haven't even gotten to the part where Jews run the world yet, but like they'll get there. You know, it's like, but the entry is just like, I don't like my general authority, and somebody's got a quick and easy answer of why that is,
Right.
with words that I understand.
Exactly. Q sent him. Look at this. Okay, so the rise of the right is very alarming in Germany and of course everywhere else. And
like we said before, tied to the wellness, and so that's where this becomes, you know, kind of the anti-vaxxing. But sorry, go ahead.
No, but this is important because they're trying to meet people where they are, and so if they find a really key aspect to this is, of course, you know what you just said. Tapping into somebody's distrust of institutions. You know, institutions, the stats are out there. This isn't like, you know, you don't have to do any sort of mental gymnastics to get there. Institutions, trust in institutions is an all-time low. Every year just gets a little bit lower. And when you pair that up with income inequality being where it's at, and of course, you know, the internet, which helps facilitate things much faster, and the internet being owned by monopolies that are at least center right and sometimes even further right. You know, so there's not very much oversight into how fast an idea or a conspiracy can spread. These networks can grow at a much faster rate than, say, like the late 30s. Which was real organizing, you know, and and there was propaganda then too, which you understand. So the wellness community is weird because it's not young men, which is
no.
There's a lot of young women. I have seen personally, and I'm part of that wellness space. I've seen personally friends of mine who are not young women. They're in their mid 40s. Yeah. They do yoga sometimes twice a day. They, you know, basically live on raw diets. They're probably better off economically than most people. I know one in particular is sort of famous as being a writer, and has just turned into a total, you know, doesn't believe in the vaccines, but it's melded. It's gone into this other space where she's not a Trumpster, it doesn't seem, but she doesn't believe in the wokeness of the internet now. And I'm like, oh no, we've lost her. She's gone. She has totally gone from being a Hillary Clinton supporter to this. So this concerns me. It's like, it's not our normal pathway, but there's something in her that's insecure about society and distrusting, and then we end up there.
I mean, false sort of medicine and fears on things like, you know, just anxiety about health has been at the center of so many bad political movements, cults, you know, just over and over again. That kind of bodily anxiety and search for an answer is just something that, when paired with low information on the internet, is the concoction that is killing us.
Right. So on this note, I want to actually ask you, because, you know, you have a lot of experience in politics. Dr. Oz, who hosts a show for 13 years, has millions and millions of viewers a week. He has been challenged for some of his his medical takes. He still conducts surgeries. I believe open heart surgeries, if I'm correct, once a week. So he is a very good surgeon. He started going on Oprah after she met him, and of course developed a following on Oprah 20 years ago. And then she gave him a show. I listened to a whole podcast on him, like a long podcast on like the questionable background of Dr. Oz. He's a legitimate doctor.
He's a real doctor, right? Not doctor. He's not Dr. Phil, right? Who's like, I think, who's like a doctor of English literature or something. Yeah. He's like a doctor.
He's a doctor. And why this is concerning is because when you put a doctor into the space of television news, one person said, if you're in the medical space, medical journals maybe publish one really transformative thing a year, and it's like not anything that you would be shocked by. It's like, drink more water, you'll be healthy. So it doesn't play well on TV. So his wife, family is really into the holistic movement, and her father is a doctor as well. So he started leaning into this holistic space, which, challenging Western medicine is not a bad thing. I mean, I think a lot of us understand that there are a lot of studies on the health benefits of yoga, on eating a balanced diet, on cutting meat. All of that stuff is indisputable at this point. But then he gets into weird things like, because of the TV way of looking, of amplifying these stories, is like, this green tea thing or green coffee is going to change your life and you're going to lose. You don't have to do anything else. It's like, well, there's no studies.
2 steps on Gwyneth Paltrow, right? It's the same shit.
Yep. So I'm that's sort of the premise. He had to testify before Congress about some of these, these pushes and how folks on the internet will take advantage of him and even put his name on something to sell products. But it's a weird dance. Flash forward, he is now running for U.S. Senate.
Madonna.
In Pennsylvania, even though he's from Southern Jersey, but that's, I guess, like, part of Pennsylvania.
It's close enough. Yeah, that's
close enough. For folks who live down there, you understand. At a time when the war is against Dr. Fauci, and he gives a speech, his first speech, his announcement speech is about how you really need to take personal ownership of your life. And the government is basically, taking too much control. And this is coming from a doctor. What does this mean?
It's horrible. It's horrible because he's a real doctor and because he's smart about how he has kind of gone into grifterism and now political grifterism, first just commercial, in that he doesn't do it all at once. It's like a bit, and you don't see the fish tank getting dirtier, right? Like he's gone from being a normal doctor who cares about women's healthcare enough to be supportive of reproductive freedoms to someone who is now okay with Roe v. Wade getting overturned, but not all at once, right? He did it with like 4 kind of different gradual moves to get there. So I think he is a smart man with not a great moral center who is following where the money and energy is. And I think he's got a shot at this race.
And then what does that mean? I mean, not just the fact that, like, say he wins or doesn't win, it doesn't matter. The fact that he has so much money and he's going to be bringing in so much money, it sort of, doesn't it legitimize?
It's going to be him on steroids, right? Behind so many things that are bad, whether it's how smoking kept going on forever without anyone sort of really talking about it. There's always one doctor behind it, right? Whether it's the autism scare about vaccines, there's always one crooked doctor behind it. When that one crooked doctor is in the Senate, like that's a problem. Because we have had like people who are crooked but are not crooked doctors in the Senate. And it's actually been a little better than if they hadn't been doctors. I'm thinking, what's his name? From Tennessee, Frist, right? Mm-hmm. Terrible guy, terrible politician. And when it came to talking about medical issues like in Africa or something, actually was a doctor and knew what he was talking about and was like, maybe. Like you're seeing here somebody who is doing the opposite, where the entire persona is wrapped up in being this rotten doctor.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's really concerning to me is, first off, he's extremely charming. And like, I've met him in person. He's really,
it's got his eyebrows. Yeah.
He's really genuinely nice. He has that je ne sais quoi that you look for.
Yeah, star quality. This is what Oprah looks for in people, right? She's like, you have a star quality. Yeah.
1,000,000%. When I talk to him, he's from Turkey and I'm from Greece, and the area that my dad's from, is right near Turkey. You can see Turkey from like the coastline from where we are. And he's from that area. So he's like, oh, we're like neighbors. I could wave to you. And we had a long conversation about food and different. And I was like, oh my God, he got me. I mean, this is a few years ago. I'm like, he got me. He got me. How did he do it? He got
bedside
me.
manner. He's got the bedside manner.
I know what his jam is. And I still got caught. I got caught in his little web of, oh, he's so charming. Anyways, but I think that's important because, you know, the audience.
He's doing that in retail politics, in ice cream stores up and down, you know, I-80 something, you know,
that's
wherever
right.
it is.
That's
81.
Right. And then on top of it, and of course, you know, female voters are very important. They turn out more. On top of it, there's this, it's sort of like the perfect storm of events in that he, you know, we're all saying like, oh, well, maybe, you know, whoever's going to, who the next Trump is going to be DeSantis or it's going to be Josh Hawley. I could very well in 4 years see Senator Dr. Oz running for president, wooing the entire country. The other aspect is he actually does believe in vaccines. He's been urging people to take vaccines, but simultaneously he is putting he's like a wedge issue for the Fauci people. He's challenging Fauci so he can pull all those folks in.
No, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. He's
Beware.
Right there on
you
the
heard
edge.
it here first, guys. You heard it here first.
Should he win this race, he has no limit to his political potential.
Exactly. He's dangerous. All right, Arun, you're the best. Anything else we want to discuss in the last 2 minutes? Got any?
No, man. We went back and forth across the Atlantic a bunch of times. That feels good. Feels like
fun.
we did a good job today. Yeah.
Relief.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
Ciao.
Ciao.